started as an intern when I was in the Mary Baldwin Shakespeare and Performance program. And then I moved into my position in 2009. So it's been a while.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. All right, DV Entertainment and Mr. David Verde himself.
Oh yeah, hello everybody. My name is David Verde. I am the owner of DV Entertainment. It's a film and TV production company in Stanton, and I'm the owner and a producer for a lot of the content and the projects that we work on. I don't know. I have a long story that doesn't necessarily need to happen, but how I landed here is a very curvy road. Being a professional freelancer with some military background, worked in journalism and editorial work in the fashion industry, and all while also moonlighting in film. So this was kind of a long road to land consistently doing just video work, and also but yeah, I'm have lots of different experiences in my lifetime, and I'm sure I can communicate something potentially helpful to enlighten your day. So feel free to ask anything. So.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us, David. And then Mr. Andrew Green from the Heifetz Institute. Tell us a little more about yourself.
Hi, everybody. Good to see you today. My name is Andrew Green, and I am with the Heifetz International Music Institute, which is based in Stanton and has been there since 2012, but the organization itself goes back to 1996. I've been with the organization just coming up on 2 years, so not super long. I'm the marketing and development manager there, and we're a really small crew. We're really only about 4 or 5 people year round. And so everyone kind of gets their hands into every aspect of the organization, which is both really challenging but really exciting as well. So you get a lot of varied experiences. And just sort of a quick background, I was a touring musician and songwriter and performer myself for many years, more in the kind of blues, jazz, folk world. So I don't really have a ton of expertise, but I do have a love and admiration for classical music. But what's really cool about music and about the Heifetz Institute is that there's this emphasis not just on mastery within the classical repertoire, but really specifically about performance and training exceptional young musicians how to become well-rounded and expressive performers. So it makes it a lot more accessible for, I think, everybody to both to appreciate the concerts. We're really trying to broaden the net of a classical and chamber music audience, but then also for somebody like me to be able to come in and bring my own musical background, my own interests, and actually have somewhat of an outlet even in a classical organization. And there's obvious great partnerships that we can do with places like the American Shakespeare Center with their absolute mastery and just knowledge of all things expression and acting. So there's a lot of great overlap there with the various departments within Mary Baldwin. And so, yeah, I'm sure we'll get into more things coming up. That's just kind of a quick background as to what the organization is doing and what I'm doing there.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. So I guess to kick it off, question I've been curious of, and I'm sure our students are curious, especially as they're living and learning in this era of COVID and all the challenges it brings. So what are some ways that your respective work has adapted or changed in light of COVID? Everybody again, jump at once.
All right, I'll start. Adapting to COVID. Well, first off, as video, the work that I've primarily been doing over the last few years has been unscripted work and like travel media. So producing travel shows, working on unscripted television series for, from PBS web series to national, to like large primetime networks. But also trying to navigate some smaller projects that, are documentary projects. And so everything that we do, if you can imagine, even from a small project where there's maybe 3 of us working on the ground and filming, we just like so many other careers, we have to be in close proximity to people. So all of a sudden, all of that access is gone. So a lot of it has just been trying to figure out how, specifically within storytelling, how can you tell stories from your room, or how do you tell stories with individuals who have no video or camera equipment or any experience at all, and try to get that in the most like high fidelity to at least with a production value that is digestible for end users' experience. So, a lot of the things that I've been doing, is really just kind of coming up with different small personal projects that maybe have no long-term gain, but just figuring out how to do that basically myself, but in a way that is presented in the format that we used to be able to do. So, like one example is I started producing a children's program in my house, and it's musically driven, and all of a sudden I'm learning how to use the software that I edit, which usually I would farm out all the work. So any kind of like motion graphics, any text, even like sound and color editing. I usually am just like, here you go, somebody else do it. That's what the budgets are for, and so I had to learn how to, something that I was familiar with under a certain level, I then had to become extremely familiar with. So I think that from my end, that's where, where I've been, and to the same effect now that we have like, more defined guidelines of how to go out, now it's trying to adapt and figure out how to produce work that does have a little more substance, that does include those other individuals that we do have to go out and meet and do it with our equipment, or do it, with myself or one other individual, but doing it within this now really strict confines of the COVID safety guidelines, or just, creating the most sterile environment possible for the understanding of the health and safety aspect of operating in the pandemic and COVID. So that's kind of what I've had to do. I don't know if that is similar. I feel like it's similar to a lot of industries, but it's really just been a lot of dabbling and just doing stuff for the fun of it, and which has now translated to something that we can now implement accurately in, as we're able to spread our wings a little bit again. So, yeah.
Yeah, so kind of the opposite of what we think with the arts, right? To think outside the box, and now you've literally been confined to the box and trying to figure out creative ways to share your medium. So, but Andrew, Sarah, any advice or insight on how your organization has pivoted with COVID?
I think Andrew and I had a similar experience. I think we both took our summer programs online. But Andrew can probably speak much more vividly to what happened with HiFit. I can tell you that we usually host 72 high school students at Mary Baldwin in the PEG dorm each summer, and this year instead we hosted just 18 on an online program, which taught us a whole lot. It taught us a whole lot about developing a culture and about creating the experience of camp at a distance, which was a good learning environment for us. And now we're taking all of our stuff, our teacher programs and our workshops, and making them Shake series so that we can teach from a distance in these boxes. But we do get to engage with our actors because they have been in a bubble, and as long as we wear masks, they can perform unmasked. So we changed. That's a big change. We've also moved to doing outdoor shows, which is not something we've ever done before, but we're working within the constraints of the time. and figuring that all out. Personally, I was furloughed for 2 months. So I spent that time doing what David was describing, like figuring out what to do in this new world. So I was reading, researching, I was taking classes, like online classes, so I could see what the experience was like to do that, just so that I would have a kind of a frame for when I came back to work and we got to dive back into Shakespeare. I'll pass the baton to Andrew. Who's frozen?
Oh,
We
am I
have
back
it.
now?
There he
There we
is.
go.
Okay. I'm actually I'm in Virginia Beach at the moment on a little working holiday with my family, so I don't have as strong a connection as usual. But a lot of what David and Sarah said really resonated with my experience as well. And as Sarah mentioned, we took our summer program, which is really the core of what we do at the Heifetz Institute. We're basically working year round to build up and build out this 6-week summer institute, which takes place on the campus of Mary Baldwin since 2012. Vision pretty early on, back in March, that we were doubtful we were going to be able to conduct our conduct our in-person experience. And at that point, we had already concluded our enrollment and our tuition process. So, we had a lot at stake already. And largely on the advice and input of our artistic director, whose name is Nicholas Kitchen, and he's in residence at on the faculty of New England Conservatory, but works with us year round and during the summers. He felt really strongly that if we can provide a meaningful experience for the students this summer, it was going to be really, really important for them, because he was already seeing with his students a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear, and the student cohort we work with really are very used to a lot of regimented scheduling, and they're on a very specific track where they're all very gifted young musicians, and probably have been since a fairly early age. So they've gone through from kind of one program to the next. Many of them, most of our students are kind of in the same age as you all, around college age, and many of them are at conservatories around the world. And the typical track is you go to conservatories during the school year, and in the summers you go to these intensive music institutes. So where we have somewhere between 8 or 12 or so kind of peer institutions that this student cohort kind of bounce around to and see what they're most interested in. So we made that decision back in March, and we're really glad we did, because it actually gave us a few months lead time to prepare it out, as opposed to just saying, programming at that point come June and July. And so for us, what that looked like was we had to question ourselves. The main thing we do at the Institute, there's 3 pillars of the programming we do. So the first is the intensive instrumental training, sort of what you'd expect at a typical conservatory. And that's where our faculty are coming from Cleveland Institute of Music, Juilliard, Peabody Institute, so top conservatories. So that's one piece of it, the instrumental training. The second piece was performance and communication training. So that's a much more kind of multidisciplinary and holistic approach, where students are working with actors and directors and speech and vocal coaches and people teaching improvisation and freedom of expression. So that's really, sort of pushing the students, a lot of whom spend a lot of time by themselves in practice rooms. Let's be honest, to get that good, you spend a lot of time just by yourself, just working on a passage. And there's a real disconnect between that and being an engaging performer. So we're trying to bring them back out into that role of what does it mean to perform? What does it mean to express this music in front of an audience? So the third part of our training, which is where those two kind of come together, are just tons of performance opportunities. So normally during our 6 weeks in Stanton, we're putting on 60 plus concerts, community outreach events during that span. So there's a lot of opportunities for the students to actually put all this stuff into practice. So our job during that planning phase was to figure out, can we deliver on those three things in the virtual realm? The instrumental training, frankly, was the easiest one because a lot of people are already used to doing music lessons online. A lot of the conservatories already pivoted to that setting March, like universities and schools did everywhere. So that piece of it, there were challenges there, obviously, as you all know who went through virtual learning. But we were pretty confident that piece of it would convey well. Working with the faculty who we have on the communication, performance and communication training, same thing. They really felt that they were going to be able to convey their teaching methods. So things like yoga and physical wellness and just these various expressive and vocal and dramatic techniques. We sort of put it in the hands of the experts who are our faculty, and they said, yeah, we can make this happen even in the virtual realm. And there was a lot of emphasis, something that Sarah said before, about relying on that culture you have and trying to bring that to the virtual realm. That was a big sort of guiding light for us. And a lot of those lessons in particular are done in group settings. So as much as possible, we're trying to continue to curate that. And some of the feedback we got both from the faculty and the students were they were actually more comfortable expressing themselves in this setting than they were in person. Just it was just a little easier for them to get out of their shell with this, the distance between the screens, which isn't something we really expected. But in some ways, I think some students probably had a more enriching experience and sort of bought that training more. The third leg of what we were doing, the performances, we needed to sort of figure out this new paradigm for how to produce and present the concerts. And so without getting into too much detail, through a pretty intensive but ultimately success process, we were able to produce virtual collaborations mostly between string players and pianists. We scaled up to do some string quartets and quintets as well, which was not without its challenges, but really yielded some great results. So that's all, a lot of it is up on our YouTube page now, if you check it out there. And we were presenting those as live streams across Facebook and YouTube and our website all summer long. So we produced over 300 new performances by students and faculty over the 6 weeks this summer. So that's our way of that's the outward facing side of what we do. So it was really important to us to keep up that piece of it as well. And again, with the mandate of having this opportunity for students to put this new training into practice through the performances. And something that David mentioned before that really resonated was this idea of you're sort of relying on collaborators who don't have the technical expertise that your normal production team has. If you're, having more kind of user-generated content, I guess. So for us, that was entirely what we were relying on. So we actually part of the tuition process here was we sent all the students studio quality headphones and microphones and trained them how to become their own recording and video engineers. And sure, hopefully in some time we're going to get back to normal here and get back to, resuming concerts in Francis Auditorium. But the fact that these students now have a really good grasp on how to properly set up and produce their own recording session, that's something that's going to certainly be serving them well long beyond the course of these current conditions we're working on. So, we're really proud of that fact that we weren't just sort of covering up for what we can do and just making the most of what it is now. We're using it as an opportunity to to teach these skills that really are going to serve our students really well in their careers down the line.
They're going to be competition for David now because they're learning how to film and produce themselves. So our kids also got a what we called a shakes box, which was full of things for them to use, like a green screen and good headsets and all of that stuff too. And we ended up with some productions that were really interesting on our American Shakespeare Center camp page. You can find it. Out of the box, in the box thinking, if you will. David, have you noticed a shift in the production aim for you guys? I was impressed with how Andrew was able to line out the objectives and say what they were able to do. Our production certainly shifted from a 1 hour to like one group decided to make Julius Caesar a documentary and the other group went crazy on social media sites to make All's Well That Ends Well as a gossipy, crazy thing. Have you changed content direction much or process?
Yeah, I would say the process is just a scaled down version, but as far as direction, you know, one project that we had in mind was really trying to expand on this local generated, or I guess local stories or stories that could have been produced within a close proximity of Stanton. And a lot of it was something trying to aim to bring in some outside parties to collaborate. And so the collaborative element has been removed, but being able to redirect and say, okay, now actually I can go tell some of these stories. And so some of the laundry list, like one of the projects I'm working on is in Stanton. It's about the North or the Central Avenue district or neighborhood in Stanton. And timing sort of has been very interesting because I started before the floods, those flash floods that came. And so now it has, like, you know, the plot twist is quite dynamic. But not so much that, it's that, you know, I still want to pursue these projects. I had other projects that were on the larger scale, like just a much broader topic. And so now instead of worrying about these projects that required me to travel all over the state, maybe out of state, and just calling up all these different national figures for interviews, it just really focused on this, what can I do absolutely in my backyard, but still with the same level of substance as far as storytelling goes, that can be appealing to an outside viewer, someone who's not local. So that's really probably been one of the most drastic shifts. It just sort of accelerated something that was in the back burner, and just sort of forced me to go there. I don't know if that.
We won't blame you for the storm cell, but it sounds like that was quite fortuitous timing.
Oh man, yeah. No, it's interesting because, you know, it's actually about. I'm working on it's going to be like potentially like a series of Latino communities in rural areas in America. But right now I'm going to focus on Virginia, trying to keep it local. And so the first one is in Stanton, and so it was about those businesses. It just sort of like by dumb luck, there's a concentration of Latino-owned restaurants in the Central Avenue area. But then, like, you know, digging into it, you find the history of, you know, that neighborhood having background in urban renewal and having a huge lineage as a Black African American community that then got decimated by urban renewal. And now you have this new minority demographic moving in that now has been decimated by natural disasters. So it's really complex, and it's amazing that it's here. And so yeah, it's actually the funniest part is that, you know, like Chicano Boy, the owner of Chicano Boy, Justin, you know, he was really, you know, I started introducing myself to everybody in the neighborhood as I started filming with different folks. And he was like, oh yeah, I love talking about that kind of stuff, like origins and like where everything kind of came from. And then it's like 3 days later, I'm hanging outside of his shop while they're cleaning and redoing plumbing and just in full panic mode. And it's just like the chattiness attitude, just like, he's like, you know, it's definitely like, you know, I've been doing this for a long time, so body language is all there. He's just like, I'm just going to ignore that you exist right now. So, but I didn't mean it for it to happen. It's really tragic, but it is going to make a very interesting story.
Yeah,
What?
I went to an exhibit downstairs in the Smith Center History art thing, and it was all about that urban, but they called it urban removal instead of renewal. And then that's really what it was. It was removing a culture from that part of town.
Yeah.
Despite we love our historical buildings.
But I think like a lot of career, I heard a lot of students say that they were a lot of performing arts majors or minors, and I think sometimes, especially I worked in the music industry, in some capacity for 15 years, and so I knew and still know a lot of touring musicians. So the goal is always no matter what genre or I guess like industry of that touring performance world that you're in, I feel like there's sometimes always this desire to achieve like national, international recognition and have this really glorious career that sort of is that has that spotlight of celebrity, if you will. And I'm very confident that so many touring musicians or performers of any kind have now figured out a way, like how can I take this skill, and some of those who've maybe been fortunate to have some level of national notoriety and success, how can I now take all that and just give to the community that I'm directly involved with and I'm sort of stuck in? And so how can I do that and make it meaningful, but also still get the gratification that I get from performing as a performer? So I don't know if you guys have been, you all have way more diverse performers that you interact with, so maybe there's something relevant there too. I'm not for sure.
I can say that. Go ahead, Andrew.
The meaningful aspect that you touched on, David, I think is really important for the way we approached it, because I mean you've all seen just tons of performances from people's living rooms and kitchens, and they really run the gamut. And some are really inspiring. There's something really cool about being brought into the home of your favorite performer, but at the same time, it can be a little jarring. It's a different context than we're used to consuming consuming their work normally. And so for us, we wanted it to both be consistent with the way we've always presented concerts, but at the same time, just to be honest and true to the fact that you are in your living room. So just, the consistency piece of it were things like, we wanted our students to dress well and look the part. Again, this is a performance. This isn't, the point of this wasn't to not, you don't want to see somebody just sitting in their practice room doing their thing. This is, their focus should be on the audience. That's a very abstract thing right now, but it's important to consider what that is. You can't just discount that piece of it. So things like that. Additionally, a big part of what we do is training students to become much more comfortable addressing their audiences. Again, not a intuitive thing for a lot of our students when they come here. You also have to consider we have a lot of international students, so English might not be their first language. So we keep that in mind. Everything is meant to be constructed in a way that's going to be comfortable and achievable for the students. The expectations of a native English speaker are going to be very different than a secondary speaker. But at the same time, we want everybody to be able to forge that connection with the audience. And part of that is introducing all the piece that they're about to play. And so that's something we carried over to our virtual programming this summer. All the performances did start with an introduction. And again, that process of getting up on stage and addressing a group of people has its own pitfalls. The process of looking into your iPhone and doing it is also really weird. And the idea that it's not just something that you're good at or you're not. Sure, some people have a natural inclination of it. They sort of light up in front of a camera or in front of an audience. But like anything else, it can be taught. There's tricks of the trade. trying to acknowledge, look, this isn't normal. This isn't what you're used to. So just ways to make that the fact that you're performing in your parents' living room, sort of just own it. Don't try to hide it. Don't try to make it look like you're on a stage. We're not doing a ton of edits to clean it up and put reverb on it so it sounds like you're in a concert hall. No, like you're in the living room, and that's fine. And if you want to have like your favorite book or some sort of memento behind you in the shot, like go for it. If that's what's going to bring some of your own personality to the performance.
Or like your dog, David.
Oh yeah, I'm actually at a friend's place, so this is a pack that is not mine. But they are quite the characters. Great background extras. So.
Yes, yeah, and that's something I think that, like you were saying, Andrew, it's something that we encouraged our students to just embrace. I mean, in this moment, embrace what is there and go with it. And I mean, when you're on stage, you don't want to lie either. So in your current stage, be honest and go with what is given you, and then you'll have a better outcome, hopefully. So, yeah.
COVID 2019 is the greatest improv act there ever was. So I definitely have more questions, but I want to take a moment and see if any of the students joining us might have a question for one of our guests today. Okay, well, everybody, they're just awaiting our next question. So thinking about how you all have adapted and remained true to your mission while developing these new skills, what are some skills you think are going to be important for students entering the arts workforce? What are some things they can be developing or focusing on while they're here at Mary Baldwin to help them succeed in these changing and evolving environments?
Flexibility, for sure. The ability to kind of take a step back, take a deep breath, and figure out what is next for you or for the next group, I think.
Yeah, and I think a willingness to just jump in and learn whatever that next necessary tool is going to be, because I can sit here and tell you what we're using now, but 2 years from now, when you're all in the workforce and working at arts organizations, like you're going to be the ones way ahead of me on whatever the next piece of that puzzle is going to be. But one thing I think is always valuable, and again, maybe I have a little bit of my own like tunnel vision with it, but just I think writing and communicating is just always going to be a valuable skill, and is no matter what the medium is, being able to tap in and be consistent with a voice, whether that's your own voice as an artist pursuing your own performing career, or if you're part of an organization, sort of learning to be sensitive and really tap into what that organizational voice is and sort of take it on as your own and express it. And for everyone that looks different, whether it's just read a lot, listen to a lot, just take in as much as you can and be aware of what resonates with you, what artistic voices, what organizational voices resonate with you, and just sort of be critical of them. Why are those the ones that are speaking to you in some sort of meaningful way, and just think about how what kind of lessons you can learn from those.
Yeah, I was camping last night, and a lot of my colleagues and folks who work with me and on projects, and of course we all have varied backgrounds and experiences with other projects. But one of the things that we were discussing was the entry level positions within our industry, which often is like production assistants, and you have a lot of ability to give people some slack and like immediate feedback when they are unfamiliar or just inexperienced with some of those like interpersonal or soft skills. And you before you go to the like, I know it's your first day, but you're fired because you just don't get this. But when you're with working online, and I think or even taking classes online, or probably classes that are online, there's a real good opportunity in it to force yourself to listen. I think I heard someone's talk about being a good listener and being present, but also really dialing in that ability to collaborate, because this is not a round table where you can have a side conversation with the person you're sitting by while there's another main conversation happening. You really have to be 100% in tune. You have to be listening to what's going on, and also to an extent wait your turn to speak up, to share some of your opinions or your ideas. So I feel like the virtual setting is really can help you reinforce those very early collaborative team working skills, which are really valuable, especially when you're coming out of school. You're going to be coming in that entry level position, and you're going to be the smallest voice and the last voice to be ever asked your opinion. And so if you can really use this as an opportunity to really increase those listening skills, and how to insert your voice appropriately in an effective way, so that way it's not just incessant rambling and with no point.
Well, and one thing we always say with our summer organization, because like I said before, our year-round staff is only like 4 or 5 people, but then in the summers, during the 6 weeks, we have like 45 faculty members and another 25 or 30 staff members to support all that. And during a normal summer, that staff would be, some of them would be serving in like a RA type role for the actual student experience. Some are more on the artistic or programming side. That all, we totally had to rethink our entire staff structure this year. So even we didn't have answers to the questions that our staff had. So a big thing for us is there's no question and there's no issue too small to bring to the table. But if you're going to bring it, think about it first and offer a solution on your own. And just you can really help push the ball forward. And we kept telling them, look, don't think we have all the answers with this, because more than ever, and we're relying. You're the ones on the ground. So even like David's saying, if you're kind of the low person on the totem pole, so to speak, you might have a better, or at least a different perspective on what a particular challenge or what a particular issue is. So don't be afraid to ask questions, but also don't be afraid to suggest the solution.
Agreed. I think what I've noticed is that you have to be really intentional about your collaboration now, because there isn't any running into each other in the hallway, or sitting down outside and having a conversation. It's very much, let's schedule that, because I need your brain. I need you to help me work through this new thing, which also I think is permission to speak in a way that maybe you don't find in a large group meeting for the younger production assistant or education associate in my case. So there is a change in how we do the work that we are used to doing with intentionality, which I think could be a benefit that we find in this time. Although I sure do miss running into people in the hallway and just talking.
I think one thing, I'm going to ask a question to Sarah, you and Andrew, but one thing I think it's really important to be aware, even if you are like the most entry level position, I think like the working class likes to say, like the janitor has a really important job. And so in the performance world, it's the same thing, like we need those people who basically are the gophers or whatever that job may be. Like your job is extremely crucial to the function of whatever it is, whether it's a stage production, whether it's film or TV set, you know, whether it's even like music. I've studied music before I left college, so those folks who work in the wings or help people hand the programs, they're just as important as the performers on stage. But what I was going to ask you guys was, I forgot my question. Let me think about it for a second. I had a question that I was going to ask, and it's based. I'll let you guys maybe interject for a second.
I agree with David that there is a very essential part even to what may appear to be the lowliest job. I mean, we have people to help actors with quick changes, and if they're not there, guess what happens? Either the actor goes out not all buttoned up, which is not real good, or they miss their entrance, right? So it's every part of a team is essential, and that's something that it's important for you guys to realize, even on the most frustrating days when you feel like you're being mistreated. Although, if you feel like you're being mistreated, you should speak up and go to HR and do those things. But yeah, even if you're not feeling it, it's still important.
So I remember what the question was. So I think because everything that we're doing is really requiring everybody to become really adaptable. And would you guys feel that within y'all's fields, within the film industry, you could be working with a brand new crew that, with people you may have never worked with for a week, and then the next week you're working on American Idol is the biggest project I've worked on recently, and I was just assisting a camera operator. But it was literally hundreds of people, and it requires you to really be adaptable to go from people you may be familiar with to complete strangers. And I feel like a lot of this is just you're constantly working with people who are at different levels of familiarity of this new virtual landscape. So would you say, with this, constantly, this is the first time I've ever used this platform, so I'm now using a new platform. I'm having to just kind of figure it out on the fly. Do you think some of these like constant new adaptations of as the pandemic kind of progresses will translate to the fluctuation and varied environments that you're going to be constantly rotating in and out of in y'all's fields as well?
I do. One of the biggest changes for us is that we can now teach students who are in Dubai and in Virginia at the same time. And we're not so much interacting with a teacher who's bringing a group, but we're interacting with individuals who decide that they want to take a Shakespeare course for fun. And so, yeah, it is a much different human interaction world than it has been. And I am curious to know how much of what we're doing now we're going to keep going forward, because we're already talking about doing a winter program like we did this summer, but just always keeping a interactive virtual camp for teenagers who need engagement during the winter break or whatever. So I'm not sure if I got to your question, but I definitely see the humans we're interacting with shifting, and that I have to be adaptable to that shift, in addition to adapting all of my programming to move into this realm. Whereas I'm used to being face to face with people and using a whiteboard or paper pad or whatever. Now I have to figure out new ways to distribute the information that I'm accustomed to just handing.
Yeah, a big thing for us.
We're on pins and needles.
Rooted locally, and really stay rooted in the Stanton community. And there was a big question: how are we going to do that? What it really, we had to rethink completely what our connection is to Stanton, since we're doing this such a strong pivot to the worldwide virtual realm now. And one thing we came up with was we had a partnership with Augusta Health, which is the local hospital network that you all probably know. And we were able to work out a program in which 18 times per week, we set up sessions in which we connected our students, some of whom were in Taiwan or Spain or China, to give one-on-one personal concerts to their patient population, many of whom have been socially isolated in the hospital for months. And their administration and their teams there were really starting to see the negative effects of that isolation on their patient population. And it was a really wonderful program. Both, we got great response from their side of things. The patients and the medical staff really gave rave reviews about it. But our students too said it was a really rewarding and fun and interesting experience. I mean, just thinking about a student sitting in Malaysia and having this really, I mean, incredibly intimate connection with somebody in a hospital room in Stanton. It's just not something we would have thought to curate in a normal setting. So, and that's something we're gonna continue. And that's something that even when we get back to being in person in whatever capacity, that might be a really valuable tool for us to be able to connect with the most vulnerable of those patient populations who we can't go in and give a we might still go into the lobby at Augusta Health and give a performance, which is something we do, but like some of those patients aren't going to be able to make it to the lobby even. So this is a way to really reach the most vulnerable. So that's another thing we're trying to think of, is how we can use these tools to reach wider and more diverse audiences in ways we haven't before. Just on a practical level, we had students this summer who attended really the first time they ever attended a summer institute. They're fantastic players from some locations internationally where we even, and in the past, they've received full scholarship offers from to come to our institute, or ones on the West Coast. So look trying to find the silver lining in things like that.
Awesome. Well, I need to be respectful of everybody's time. This hour has flown by. And I just want to thank you all again, Sarah from American Shakespeare, David from DV Entertainment, and Andrew from Heifetz Institute for joining us today. And since I was remiss in introducing your lunches or giving you a chance to talk about your tasty things at the beginning, how about we end the session with you guys recommend one of your favorite places to grab lunch in town and your favorite dish there? I take a moment for some of us.
I typically go to the 101 and grab some sort of poke bowl. I like it on lettuce, but I'll go with quinoa if it's available too.
I actually live in Crozet, so I really miss being in Stanton. And for the first 4 or 5 months, I actually wasn't in Stanton at all. I'm just working from home. And so a couple of weeks ago, I made the trip, and I went to Laughing Bird and just ordered everything on the menu. Like literally, it's not a big menu, but just got everything and took it home. And we had leftovers for 4 days, and everything was great. So it's just a great place, and can't recommend it highly enough.
I've been going to Gonzo's Chicken recently.
Ooh, yeah.
It's the Peruvian chicken truck, and he has lots of it's interesting, because I guess that's South America, so it's different than where I'm from, in Honduras, but it's still close enough that the flavors are nuanced enough to be unique. from what I grew up eating. So that's been kind of my spot to go. And he's only open 3 days a week, so it's kind of a special treat to catch it.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys again so much for joining us. We'll put this recording up on our Mary Baldwin YouTube page, and I'll send you guys a link once we have that live. So everybody have a great week. Thanks for doing lunch.
Bye. Thanks.